the bell icon to get more updates.
Long ago, in a far-off kingdom lived a king and a queen who longed to have a child of their own. Their wish was fulfilled after a beautiful girl was born to them. The king and the queen's joy knew no bounds, so they decided to host a royal dinner party. All the fairies in the kingdom were invited, for the king and queen knew that they would each give a wonderful gift to the new princess. But King forgot to invite an old fairy who was very wicked. On the day of the party, the fairies began to offer their gifts. The first fairy gave the gift of beauty. The second gave happiness. The others gave goodness, health, gracefulness, and kindness. The seventh fairy was just stepping forward when the door burst open. In rushed the bad-tempered fairy, furious that she had not been invited. Everyone shrank back as she rushed up to the cradle. On your 16th birthday, you will prick your finger with the spindle and die, she hissed spitefully at the baby princess before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Everyone shivered with horror, but at that moment, the seventh fairy, who had not bestowed her gift, stepped forward. "Take heart," she said to the king and queen. "Your daughter will not die. My magic isn't strong enough to break the wicked spell, but I can weaken the evil. Instead of dying, the princess will fall asleep for 100 years and will wake up only when kissed by a prince." The king, hoping to save his daughter, immediately ordered every spinning wheel and spindle in the land to be burned. For 15 years, everything went well. The princess grew into the most beautiful, the kindest, and the most graceful child anyone had ever seen. At last, the day of her 16th birthday arrived. The king and queen held a magnificent party for her in their palace. They thought that this would stop her from finding a spindle on that day and so protect her from the wicked fairy's curse. After the feast, the princess asked if they could play hide and seek. When it was her turn to hide, the princess ran to the far corner of the palace and found a small doorway she had never seen before. She climbed spiral staircase to a high tower, thinking that this would be a wonderful place to hide. When she reached the top, she found a little room. Inside was an old woman sitting at a spinning wheel. "What are you doing?" asked the princess, fascinated by the twirling wheel and the whirling spindle, for of course she had never seen anything like it. "I am spinning," replied the old lady cunningly, for she was the wicked fairy in disguise. "Would you like to try?" The princess sat down and took the spindle. No sooner had she picked it up than the point of the spindle pricked her finger. At once she fell to the ground as she were dead. The wicked fairy's curse had come true, but the good fairy's spell came true too, for the princess was not dead, only sleeping. Immediately, everyone else in the palace fell asleep as well. The king and queen nodded off on their thrones. The guests dozed off as they looked for the princess. The cook started snoring in front of her oven. All over the palace, nothing could be heard but the gentle sounds of hundreds of people sleeping. As the years passed by, a great hedge of horns grew up around the palace. Nearly everyone forgot about the king and queen and their beautiful daughter. But one day, 100 years later, a young prince rode by and saw the great hedge of thorns. He stopped and asked an old man what was behind it. The old man told the prince about the palace. The prince was excited by the story and impatient to find out whether it was true. He drew his sword and started to hack the thorns. To his surprise, the thorns seemed to part in front of him, and in a very short time he had reached the palace. He went through the open door and was amazed to see all the people inside fast asleep. Every single thing was covered in dust, and there were huge cobwebs hanging from the ceiling. He explored all the rooms in turn and finally climbed a spiral staircase to the top of a high tower. There, in a small room, lying on the floor, was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. She was so lovely that without thinking, he leaned forward and kissed her. Immediately, the spell was broken and the princess opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was the handsome prince. The prince led the princess gently down the spiral staircase. All around them, they could hear the sound of the palace coming to life. The prince asked the king and queen for permission to marry their beautiful daughter. They agreed, and soon plans were being made for the wedding. The 7 good fairies were invited to the wedding feast. They wished the princess and her prince a long and happy life together. As for the wicked fairy, nobody knew what happened to